If you've ever stood in your garden scratching your head because one plant is lush, green and productive, while another, a few inches away, is struggling or dying, you're not alone. This mystery frustrates beginners and experienced gardeners alike. Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe to the Evergreen Garden channel and drop a comment below if this has happened to you, because today's guide will permanently change how you look at your soil, your plants, and your gardening decisions. Most gardeners assume that if two plants are side by side, they experience the same conditions. In reality, the garden is a patchwork of microenvironments, and plants respond to subtle differences that are easy to miss but powerful enough to determine success or failure. The soil beneath your feet is never uniform, even in small spaces. One of the biggest reasons neighboring plants perform differently is soil inconsistency. Even within one bed, soil texture, organic matter, drainage, and compaction can change every few inches. A thriving plant may be sitting in looser soil with better airflow and drainage, while the failing one could be rooted in compacted earth that holds water too long. For example, if one section of your bed was stepped on during planting, that soil becomes compacted. Roots there struggle to penetrate, oxygen levels drop, and beneficial microbes decline. A simple test is pushing a finger or small stick into the soil. If one spot resists while another sinks easily, you've found a major reason for uneven growth. A practical fix is to loosen the soil at least 30 centimeters deep and mix in compost at a ratio of 1 part compost to 2 parts native soil. This evens out structure and restores biological life that roots depend on. Water behavior in soil is another silent factor. Gravity, soil texture, and organic matter determine where water pools and where it drains too quickly. One plant might receive consistent moisture, while the other suffers from either drought stress or root rot. Clay-heavy soil holds water longer, while sandy soil drains fast. If one plant's roots sit slightly lower, they may be drowning, while the neighboring plant stays perfectly balanced. This often happens in raised beds, sloped gardens, or hand-watered plots. To correct this, you'll want to water deeply and slowly, aiming for moisture penetration down to about 20 to 30 centimeters. You can test this quite easily by digging a small hole an hour after watering. If you find the top is wet but the lower layer is dry, well, your watering method probably needs a bit of adjustment. Adding organic matter, by the way, really helps improve water distribution and reduces these extremes. Plants don't just compete above ground. Actually, underground competition is often even more intense. Roots from aggressive plants, trees, or even weeds can dominate one area while leaving another less crowded. The plant that thrives may simply have better access to nutrients and space. This sort of thing is quite common when planting near fruit trees, hedges, or fast-growing crops like maize or bananas. Even within the same species, a stronger seedling can establish dominance early on and suppress its neighbor. Spacing is critical. If tomatoes are planted too closely, one will often outperform the other. A practical spacing rule is to allow at least 45 to 60 centimeters between large fruiting plants. When transplanting, gently spread roots outward instead of leaving them circling, giving each plant a fair start. Many gardeners underestimate how sensitive plants are to light duration and intensity. A plant receiving 1 extra hour of morning sun may outperform another stuck in afternoon shade, even if they appear side by side. Structures, fences, taller plants, or even seasonal sun angle shifts can create uneven exposure. Fruiting crops like peppers and tomatoes need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Leafy greens tolerate less, but inconsistency still affects growth. So you'll want to observe your garden at different times of day for a full week. If you notice that one plant consistently falls into shadow earlier, you might consider relocating it or pruning nearby growth. Sometimes, simply rotating the bed orientation or adjusting plant height combinations can solve the problem. Fertilizers and compost don't actually spread uniformly through soil. Nutrients move quite slowly and often stay exactly where they're placed. A plant that's closer to compost pockets or fertilizer bands will, well, have an advantage. Nitrogen, for example, fuels leaf growth, while phosphorus supports roots and flowering. If one plant has access to higher nitrogen levels, it may grow vigorously while its neighbor unfortunately remains stunted. So, a balanced approach is really to mix nutrients thoroughly into the soil before planting and then top dress evenly. A reliable ratio for organic feeding would be, say, 2 handfuls of compost and 1 tablespoon of balanced organic fertilizer per planting hole. This helps prevent nutrient hotspots and deficiencies, which is quite important for healthy plant growth. Healthy soil is actually alive, and microbes play a massive role in plant success. Beneficial bacteria and fungi form partnerships with roots, which improves nutrient uptake and disease resistance. However, microbial populations aren't evenly distributed throughout the soil. If one area has been treated with chemicals or left dry for long periods, microbial life really declines. The plant growing there will struggle, even if everything else seems right on the surface. Applying compost tea or well-decomposed compost helps restore balance. A simple compost tea ratio is 1 shovel of compost to 10 liters of water, steeped for 12 to 24 hours, then applied to the soil, not the leaves. This, really boosts microbial activity exactly where roots need it. Not all seedlings are equal. Even plants from the same packet can have different vigor. One may adapt quickly after transplanting, while another suffers from root damage or, stress. Rough handling, exposed roots, or planting too deep can weaken a plant permanently. When transplanting, keep the root ball intact and plant at the same depth it grew in the nursery. Water immediately to eliminate air pockets and reduce shock. Sometimes, the failing plant isn't your fault. Removing weak plants early and replacing them often leads to better overall garden performance. Insects and soil pathogens often strike one plant before spreading. A slightly stressed plant emits signals that attract pests, while a healthy neighbor remains untouched. Inspect struggling plants closely. Look under leaves, along stems, and at the soil line. Early intervention with neem oil, soap sprays, or manual removal can save plants before damage becomes irreversible. Healthy soil, proper spacing, and consistent care really do reduce these problems in the long run. Honestly, the biggest difference between gardeners who succeed and those who struggle is, attention. Thriving plants will tell you what they need, and failing ones show you what's wrong if you know how to read them. Take notes. Observe patterns. Adjust one factor at a time instead of just guessing. Gardening isn't luck. It's applied understanding, repeated over seasons. If this guide helped you see your garden differently, do subscribe to Evergreen Garden for more practical, experience-based knowledge. Share this video with a fellow gardener who's a bit confused by uneven growth, and leave a comment telling us what plants are thriving or failing in your garden right now. Let's grow smarter together.